to Andy Robertson then, because he says his future at Liverpool hasn't been decided yet, with his contract set to expire in the summer. And Robertson also admits he's been frustrated by his lack of playing time. The Liverpool vice-captain remains in talks with the club over a new contract and insisted a change in his role this season has not diminished his desire to play. Now, Robertson had a chance to move to Atletico Madrid last summer, but opted to stay after the club, of course, won a second Premier League title in the space of 5 years. This is what Robertson had to say. I've got 5 months left and we need to see the option to stay or if there's options to go. I need to see what myself and my family want moving forward. I've given absolutely everything for the club for the last 8.5 years and the club have been very good to me. I do have a different role here this season, which I'm getting enjoyment out of, but at the end of the day, footballers want to play, and if anyone is sat happy on the bench, then they don't belong at a football club. Maybe I've not played as much as I would have liked, but it's nothing I've been surprised by. Let's see, he says, what happens. So, did we see this one coming? Do you think?
I mean, there were signs of a potential exit, and you alluded to it there.
Yeah.
When you were talking about Robertson and Atletico Madrid, because last summer, when Milos Kerkez made the move from Bournemouth to Liverpool, I think Andrew Robertson knew then, well, is my game time going to be limited at Anfield now? And Atletico Madrid did come in with an offer, and Andy Robertson has since said that there was a chance that he could have gone to Atletico Madrid, but he decided it wasn't right for him or his family at that stage of his career. He wanted to stay and fight for his place at Anfield. Of course, since that move hasn't happened in the summer, Milos Kerkez has been the preferred option for Arne Slot in that left-back area. And Andrew Robertson has started just 4 Premier League games so far this season. So I think what will have to happen is he will take a look at what happens for the rest of the season. Those talks, as you mentioned, over a new contract are continuing. But if the situation arises where the game time is still limited, I think Andrew Robertson himself will have a decision to make, regardless of whether Liverpool decide to offer him a new contract or not come the summer, because he has still said he's got the hunger and the appetite to play. He's still 31 years old. I think he's 32 in a couple of months. So he's still got plenty of games left in him, and he's still got the desire, clearly, to play at the highest level. He's got the World Cup with Scotland coming up as well. He's the captain of Scotland, isn't he, in the summer? So I think his focus for now, for the rest of his contract as it stands at Liverpool, he'll be there until the end of the season, and then on the World Cup. And then I will think he'll take a step back and say, what would be best for my career and my family moving forward?
It's interesting because I know we're talking about the end of the season, but can they afford to lose him at the moment? Because wasn't it Arne Slot who came out the other day and said, hang on, I need more in defence? Yeah, they're struggling for defensive options right now. Darmish is right to point out that he's only started 4 Premier League games this season, but he's played 20 times in all competitions. He's clearly still an important squad player this season. He's in quite an interesting position because it's clear that he has been replaced by Milos Kerkez, but you wonder how valuable that experience he has is going to be for Liverpool moving forward. He's still a really good left-back. He's not quite the player he was when he burst onto the scene at Liverpool. He's not going to get those similar opportunities, you wouldn't think. So it's up to Andy Robertson, if Liverpool do indeed offer him a contract, whether he's happy to be a squad player at one of the biggest clubs in the world, or he sees himself being a key player for another big club. I think Liverpool are going to be in a situation either way where they need to make a decision in terms of trying to extend Andy Robertson's contract for 1 or 2 years, or in the summer you think they would have to buy another left-back because we've got Kostas Tsimikas coming back from his loan spell. I don't think his future remains at Anfield. I think he left because he wants more first-team opportunities. So it's whether financially it makes more sense. If they still think Andy Robertson is at a level that can compete at left-back for Liverpool when required, whether they try and keep him on, and that wouldn't cost a transfer fee, or you spend what would be a significant amount of money to sign a Milos Kerkez deputy.
It really does feel like that area of the pitch in defence for Liverpool is going to be so key for them. Maybe even in this month, but definitely in the summer, because if Andrew Robertson is no longer at the club, Ibrahim Konate, even though there are talks over a new contract, he's into the final 6 months of his contract as well. Virgil van Dijk is getting a little bit older, even though he has signed a new contract. They will want to get players in the central defensive positions, and now, of course, at full-back as well. So definitely an area to watch for Liverpool and could be a big priority for them come the summer.
Yeah, and you know, I'm going to be sneaky and sort of talk about this window as well, because we're only on the 15th. So potentially, if there are talks, and this is perhaps a little ironic that this has come out now, that he's still not sure about his future. Could it prompt him to go? They get the money for him and they could still spend that money in defence in this period at all? Do you think they could make a signing in this window, or do you think this is just about the summer?
There'll always be alert to any opportunities that there are there for Liverpool. I think regardless of whether Andrew Robertson was to leave in this transfer window or not, because just say, for example, he stays, but Liverpool have the inkling that actually it's going to come to an end in the summer. We've always been talking about long-term targets, haven't we? And unique market opportunities. So maybe if they had a left-back in mind that they wanted to bring in to challenge Milos Kerkez for the long term, and he became available in this transfer window, then who's to say that Liverpool couldn't act in this transfer window for that position as well as the other central defensive areas that they're looking at too?
I know you're not expecting me to ask you this, but I am going to ask it. The Marc Guehi situation, has that gone away completely, do you think, this window, for Liverpool perhaps?
We wait to see what happens with Marc Guehi, because I think Crystal Palace up until deadline day would consider realistic options and offers for Marc Guehi, because I think in an ideal world they wouldn't let a player of that calibre go for absolutely nothing. On the flip side, he could do a huge amount for Crystal Palace this season in terms of winning the Conference League, getting them into the European places in the Premier League as well. And we know Liverpool have that long-standing interest. A number of clubs want to sign Marc Guehi, but it's becoming clearer and clearer, and you can understand why. The majority of these clubs want to try to sign him in the summer as a free agent, where there won't be that transfer fee, but in the summer there'll be a huge amount of competition for his signature. Clubs like Bayern Munich and Barcelona can still have conversations with him now. He could sign a pre-contract agreement now with a club outside of the Premier League. I think Liverpool would enter the market and try to sign him in January if it became clear a club like Manchester City, who are struggling with defensive options right now, wanted to try and sign him. So I think everybody's playing a waiting game right now. They want to sign him as a free agent, but if any of those clubs come in now, I'm sure Liverpool would be alert and they'd try to act on it, because they missed out on him on deadline day.
Yes, and they played that waiting game and they fell foul.
Yeah, and the waiting game, you've got to look at it on the Crystal Palace's side as well. You're saying, what is it, January the 15th?
Yes, it is, I think.
All day, yeah?
Apparently so.
So less than 3 weeks to go until this window closes. The reason that Marc Guehi didn't end up going to Liverpool on deadline day is because Crystal Palace couldn't bring in a replacement. You looked at the Antoine Semenyo situation, and I use that as a little bit of a comparison, in that they set a release clause for Antoine Semenyo up to a certain date.
10th of Jan, wasn't it?
Because they said if he is to go, and they're expecting people and other clubs to come in and meet that release clause, they want to have enough time to be able to bring in a replacement. For Crystal Palace's perspective, yes, they don't want to leave him on a free, as James mentioned, but they don't want to be in a position where they let Marc Guehi go in this transfer window and Oliver Glasner is left without a replacement.
But you'd think they must have one eye on a replacement right now, because in case that happens,
Of course, but it's easier said than done as well, because as much as we are saying, right, Crystal Palace are going to try and put themselves in a position where if Marc Guehi was to leave, Marc Guehi holds the cards with regard to whether he leaves, provided the card that Crystal Palace owns, they basically can accept or reject an offer. They don't have to accept an offer if it comes in. But Marc Guehi, at the end of the day, even if Palace accept the offer from a club in this transfer window, he does not have to go. He's under contract. He could say, actually, I'm going to stay at Crystal Palace. I'm going to wait until the summer. I'm not going to sign a pre-contract agreement, because come the summer, it's not only all the Premier League clubs that can look at me for free, all of the European clubs who are able to talk to me on a pre-contract agreement in this month can talk to me for free as well.
Could already have signed a pre-contract, unbeknown to us, unbeknown to you two. Check it out.
We'll find out.
Right, Rangers making some moves early in the window. Right, we've just got a few minutes left. We're going to try and get through a bit of Liverpool, a bit of Raheem Sterling, a bit of Arsenal, guys. All right, let's start with Liverpool, in particular Mo Salah, because the issue's going to come back, isn't it? He's going to come back from AFCON next week. Egypt have been knocked out, but he doesn't come back immediately. They've got a third, fourth playoff this weekend, which I'm sure Liverpool need like a hole in the head. They'd probably rather have him back sooner rather than later. So his first game will probably be next weekend against Bournemouth away. Does he come straight back into the 11?
Yes. Yeah, because I think the unfortunate injury of Conor Bradley opens that up for Frimpong to play at right back and Salah to go back to right wing. I think that's the obvious situation. I know they sometimes have to move Szoboszlai out there, either right back or playing from the right side. You don't want him there, you want him in the middle. It just makes sense to put him straight back in, and hopefully he gets firing, gets an early goal or something in that first game straight away. And then, we were talking positive things about Mo Salah again at Liverpool.
Chris, they do have some right-back issues, don't they? Conor Bradley out for the season now, but we're hearing that it will not force Liverpool into doing business in January in terms of a right-back. They have got options, of course, but if you look at the options, is there a danger that when you put that player in, it weakens another area of the pitch?
Yeah, I mean, just, like Ash mentioned, it means that they've got to bring, potentially Frimpong back from wing, from higher up on the pitch on the right-hand side, where he's been playing.
He does look
really
good,
well.
yeah, he looks good though, yeah, he looks comfortable.
Can use more of his attributes, I think, is more of an attacking player than a defensive player, really. So they'll lose that, but Liverpool...
Szoboszlai, you lose in the midfield, same with Curtis
Jones as well. You've got Joe Gomez, who's more of a bit part player now, more of a defensive player, so they're all different profiles. Liverpool, similar to Man United, Man United, I think, are trying to run their club like how Liverpool do in terms of recruitment. Don't panic. So if someone gets injured, don't just go into the market straight away and go, we need to replace him. Conor Bradley will be back. They have a lot of faith in him. They've got a lot of trust in him. He was playing ever so well before he got that injury. So I think, with that backup that we talked about, Joe Gomez and Frimpong are more than enough to carry them to the end of the season. But naturally they will lose a little bit, like all teams do when you get injuries. But Liverpool won't panic.
Liverpool defender Andy Robertson, he would like to remain at Liverpool beyond this summer when his contract expires, but he says he's a player who wants to play. Robertson added that nothing has been decided yet, despite discussions with the club. We just got a few seconds to go, Jody. But do you think, 31 years old, do you think Robertson's still got quite a bit to offer Liverpool in the next couple of years?
Oh, absolutely. I think he's probably been a little bit harshly done by how he hasn't played as much this year. I know Kirkes was a big signing and done great for Bournemouth, but what Andy Robertson has done for Liverpool should never, ever be underestimated. He's been a fantastic servant, top player, top pro, great lad in and around the dressing room, and there's no chance. When we saw the news come up, we was all speaking, going, what's happening to Andy Robertson? Because if you're at Liverpool, there's no way you let Andy Robertson leave that football club.
Yeah. OK. Guys, been an absolute pleasure. Enjoyed having you both on. Chris, well done, mate. The striker market, very hard to deal in because they're often very costly, in high demand, especially in January. Of course, in the summer, it really was the transfer window of the big-name striker, wasn't it? We saw some big striker moves. We're trying to have a look at some of them now because we spent a lot of time talking about these players. These are the big players that we've picked, the 6 big strikers that were signed in the summer for big money. Ekitike, Voltemade, Gyökeres, Šeško, Isak and Wissa. There was a lot of movement, wasn't there? But have they made the impact that was expected, Chris, given the outlays that we saw?
I mean, it's lovely order there on the graphics, so we can kind of go down on who's done best to worst. Wasn't expecting that.
Descending,
well done, my graphics team.
Look, debatable.
Hugo Ekitike, I think, undeniable success. Obviously injured at the moment. Nick Voltemade as well. I think Newcastle will be very happy with that return. I think now we go down the list and we start to see where there might be some misses rather than hits. Victor Gyökeres came to Arsenal as somebody who was meant to be guaranteeing goals. We're talking about ready-made goals and a ready-made goal scorer. 5 in 19 with a few of those as penalties. I don't think they would have been happy with that return, although Mikel Arteta is saying that he would improve. Same for Benjamin Šeško as well. I think 4 in 17, we expected more there. Isak, we know he got off to a slow start because of his pre-season, and Wissa as well was injured for the first part of the season. But it's just interesting at the moment. You look at the Premier League top goal scorer chance. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's up there on a free transfer. Bruno Guimaraes as a midfielder is up there with 8 goals. Antoine Semenyo is a winger. We know that football's played slightly differently these days, so wingers often do find themselves up in them goal scoring charts. But to me, it's no surprise that teams are looking around for strikers, because at the moment it just doesn't seem like teams are getting their value for money, or they certainly haven't from that graphic this window.
The two that you quite rightly picked out there, Chris, Šeško and Gyökeres, maybe the two that have expected a bit more from if you were Manchester United or Arsenal. When you look at those numbers, how much of that do you think is down to the teams still not quite fully understanding what their strengths are and how to play to their strengths?
And it's a tough gig when you come into Manchester United or Arsenal as a big name, big money striker. I think with Arsenal, they've played for so long and played so well without that big target man number 9. They're probably not, it's took them a while to get used to playing to his strengths, and then you don't want to take away from what you was doing anyway if you're Mikel Arteta. But I do think Gyökeres, he'll get there. I think we're seeing improvements in him, even last night. And Sesko, exactly the same. So he's looked completely out of sorts, but in a team that looks out of sorts a lot of the time anyway, although they're not having a bad season. But Manchester United, you just don't really know what you're going to get. So imagine going into that as a striker and you're not sure when the ball's going to arrive or if it's going to arrive or from where. But I do think in the last game we saw a different Sesko, especially in that second half against Burnley, where he got his goals and he looked like the real deal. So sometimes we expect a little bit to him. We expect him to hit the ground running, but that is football these days, and it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes you get an Ekitike, he just comes and looks brilliant straight away, but sometimes it takes a little bit longer. It's a bit more of a slow burn. So I think both of those two will come good, Sesko and Gyökeres.
And I think with those two as well, I don't think anyone was under any illusions that they would 100% come in and take the league by storm. Sesko's playing in the Bundesliga, still very young. Gyökeres, the Portuguese league, just so different in terms of defensively and how he would get his goals. If you look at his kind of, his YouTube reel, his highlights, there was no way he was going to replicate that style in the Premier League playing for Arsenal. So I think Mikel Arteta has talked about the job he's doing away from scoring goals. I think that's to protect him a little bit because he definitely will want more goals from him. But last night was good for him. Got his tap in, got his assist. So I'm sure that they'll be expecting him to kick on now.